Hi, everyone. I'm Katherine Sanders from Sanders Consulting, and I'd like to walk you through my stress strain process here. So let me share a slide. Okay. Um, so here is our stressor. Um, so this is something that creates a demand on a person, and in a work situation, that could be something like a new project. So let's say there's another piece of work that you're being asked to do, right? And that new stressor, so the increased demand, the increased workload, is filtered then through our individual perceptions and hardiness. So this is sort of like our um, psychological and physiological makeup, what we brought into this world, what we derive from living the life we've lived in our family. And based on how we interpret this demand, then we have a psychological and a physiological response. So that could be I feel an increased sense of anxiety that you've asked me to do more work, and now I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a tension headache. Um, and this psychological and physiological response then can lead into acute strain. So perhaps I'm tense enough, I'm anxious enough that I start to give myself a tension headache. Now, depending on how long I stay in this situation where I'm very tense and under acute strain, the exposure to that, or the antithesis, the recovery time I have, would be the duration of time I spend here. And if I spend a lot of time in acute strain, like with high levels of high heart rate, high blood pressure, a lot of tension in my body, I can, over weeks, months, and years and decades, create mental and physical health outcomes that are more chronic in nature, right? So this exposure time to this strain, or how much recovery time I have between feeling this strain, will determine what kind of long-term chronic health outcomes I have. And when I get to this place where I'm having chronic headaches, I'm perhaps suffering migraines more often each month, then we start to talk about resiliency then. So now that I've actually had some sort of poor health outcome, perhaps an anxiety, mental health issue, or a physical issue like headaches, then we can start to talk about, well, maybe I'll go to acupuncture, or maybe I'll start practicing yoga again, or maybe I'll start with walking out in the fresh air more often. And so that then is meant to kind of help us recover from these poor health outcomes due to increased stress. And another thing that happens is, of course, that my own coping mechanisms. So perhaps I do go to yoga, but then I also decide I'm going to, when I'm really feeling low, I decide to buy ice cream and sit on my sofa and watch reality television, right? So this coping mechanism that I choose may or may not increase my resiliency, but in the end, all of this will feed back, of course, into my hardiness. And when the next stressor comes, then my hardiness is impacted based on how all of this has gone over the last days, weeks, months, years, decades. So the reason this is so important to look at as a process, and of course this is just a model. George Box, the statistician, used to say, all models are wrong, but some are useful. So this isn't intended to represent exactly what's happening in the stress strain process, but it gives us something really important, which is a set of intervention points. And the reason this is color coded is because in the green, here are our wellness programs, right? So they help buoy our hardiness and our resiliency. In the orange is our medical help. So I can get biofeedback, right, training to try to help me when I feel my body tensing up. I can go to the doctor and talk about my tension headaches. I can go to the doctor or the psychologist and talk about my anxiety disorders or my chronic migraines. The pink is its own little grab bag of individual coping mechanisms. And for each person, they're going to be essentially the way we were raised, the way that we comfort ourselves. And then this blue here, where what the stressors are and the level of the stressor and the recovery time we give people to recover from the stressors, these blue pieces are where engineers like myself help work processes. So human factors and work systems engineers help you figure out what are the stressors that are causing the poor health outcomes, and what do we need to do to either decrease the stressors or increase the recovery time people have between those events. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you want to learn more about work stress and strain and what leads to burnout and how to design work so that it promotes health, please see my website at KatherineSandersConsulting.com or my online programs at BeEffectiveSeries.com. Thanks very much.